the person levitates and is free to zip around to their heart's content. There's no science or physics here, just pure who gives a fuck, don't think about it energy. But Superman has always been rooted in science fiction. He is an alien, and his powers come from Earth's yellow sun affecting his Kryptonian physiology. John Byrne's 1980s reboot introduced the idea that it's a form of telekinesis. He can move himself through sheer force of will with his mind. Darkseid's advisor, Desaad, proposed that Superman is actually bending space and time so that he's pulling himself forward. Other than Superman sequels, the next major development in cinematic human flight was in Steven Spielberg's Hook, with visual effects by Industrial Light and Magic. This being a Peter Pan movie, the flying is once again more magic-based. Once he's defying gravity, Peter Pan seemingly directs where his body moves with his mind. It often resembles swimming, with him thrusting his legs to pick up speed. Like, remember that whole sequence in Martin Scorsese's The Aviator, when Howard Hughes realizes that to shoot flying scenes, as in plane scenes, you need clouds in the sky behind the planes to sell the idea of movement and speed. They figured that out back in the late 1920s, and sure enough, every flying scene since has involved skies full of cumulus clouds. So as you can see in shots like this one, it's the clouds around him that really sell the effect. And now we jump ahead 12 years to this. While Neo only flies in the final shot of the original Matrix, in the sequels, he's flying all the time, referred to as doing his Superman thing. Now, I think the physical process here is really interesting, especially if you want to get nerdy about how Neo's abilities work, which I do. Each time he flies, he has a big takeoff, where he has to focus his energy and do a precise movement to launch himself. There are these ripples on the surfaces around him, so there's a shock wave, but not one that damages or cracks the ground. It's like a ripple in reality, like in the hallway at the end of the first movie. He's warping the world around him to basically undo gravity. Much of the flying is shot straight on, with Neo centered in the frame, flying right toward the camera as the background flies by. His coat functions like Superman's cape, rippling in the air, creating a sense of motion. But for the more movement-heavy shots, Neo is entirely CGI, and here the camera is able to be more active, flying with him. These techniques, especially the use of digital doubles, would become standard in the following years, used in films like Superman Returns in 2006. And as the superhero movie boom continued to explode, as you all know, we got a lot more flying. 2013's Man of Steel seems to adapt the comic book concept of Superman's flight creating this anti-gravity field around his body. In the scene where he flies for the first time, as he focuses his energy and prepares to take off, we see particles from the ground levitating around him. And later, when he levitates off the ground, dust spins around him. In this movie, he tends to fly with his arms out in front of him, directing his body. The flying, like most of the movie, is shot with long lenses in a handheld cinema verite style. So the close-ups on Cavill here are shaky with the camera kind of vibrating, as if a camera operator is sitting right in front of him, trying to keep the camera steady. In wider shots, it seems like the camera is trying and struggling to keep up with Superman because he's going so fast. One angle has the camera sort of mounted at his feet, moving cleanly with him until he flies off ahead. This is an interesting technique that hadn't really been done before, that's trying to ground the flight in the reality of what it would actually take for a human being to film this. And of course, because there are simply so many superhero movies, there's a lot more flying in Eternals, and Captain Marvel, and Shazam. But right now, I want to jump ahead to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is James Gunn's most recent film before Superman, and also his first time with a flying character, in this case, Adam Warlock, who, in a frequently memed image, is shot with a similar approach to what's used in the Superman shot. We can see some of the techniques that we've already discussed here, like the wide-angle lenses and the environmental effects. A detailed detail that I really think helps sell this shot is the wind blowing in Superman's hair. In most other flying scenes, it seems like there's like a mild fan blowing on people, but here, Superman's hair is waving like he's in a convertible with the top down. You don't immediately notice it, but it's that kind of small detail that helps make this feel real. CW shows can do it pretty well. But now that it's so common, I feel like there's a lack of wonder and joy to it. Flight primarily exists in superhero movies, where it's almost always in service of action and violence. A couple years ago, James Cameron spoke about how when making the original Avatar, the studio tried to get him to cut down the extended flying sequences, saying, "The studio felt that the film should be shorter, and that there was too much flying around on the Banshees." Well, it turned out that's what the audience loved the most, in terms of our exit polling and data gathering. As he usually does, Cameron got his way, and as he usually does, he was proven to be right. Avatar went on to become the highest grossing movie of all time, and it seems like that was partly due to people just enjoying the escapism of flight. Not even flight into battle, just flying around and having a nice time. Some of the most emotional, thrilling scenes in all of cinema, for me at least, are moments when people realize that they can fly. I'm talking about like the bikes flying in E.T., or when the Iron Giant flies for the first time, or more recently in The Matrix Resurrections when Trinity can fly. There's a cathartic rush here that's kind of hard to explain, but personally, as someone who very rarely cries at movies, most of these moments reduce me to tears. I don't know what this says about me, but it just hits me every time. It's this profoundly beautiful instance of personal transcendence. I mean, we just had another huge one in the giant blockbuster Wicked, where in the climax of the movie, I think Cynthia Erivo perfectly expresses this feeling. In that scene, when Peter flies again, suddenly, the movie feels like a masterpiece. Also, I'm on the record as not being crazy about Man of Steel, but that first flying scene is pretty great, by far the best part of the movie, and it's the one time that Superman actually seems to experience any joy in the whole film. Look, if we want to talk about flying being this big cathartic emotional rush, the final shot of The Matrix is literally Neo flying straight up past the camera. And when that happens, we all go nuts and suddenly the audience is on their feet, ripping seats out of the floor and moshing in the theater to Rage Against the Machine. The image of people rising as they transcend and grow and become more powerful has existed through all of human storytelling, from the Greek gods on Mount Olympus to Rocky running up the museum steps as his theme song plays, which, lest we forget, is literally called "Gonna Fly Now." Flight is the ultimate feeling of freedom taking a literal form. It's defying one of the core laws of physics. In the air, you're untouched by anything. You have total independence, and you are above everything. All problems seem small and beneath you. It is transcending regular existence. As you may have noticed, this is a very similar premise to Steven Spielberg's Hook. For the first half of his career, Steven Spielberg, the most popular filmmaker of all time, was obsessed with flight, and by extension, Peter Pan. From the same interview quoted earlier, he said, "I am absolutely fascinated by flying. It is a big deal in my movies. All my movies have airplanes in them. You name the movie, they all fly. To me, flying is synonymous with freedom and unlimited imagination." So Close Encounters of the Third Kind ends with a man flying away in a spaceship that, the movie tells us, will prevent him from ever aging. Spielberg made multiple movies about pilots. At the start of each Indiana Jones movie, a plane takes him to his next adventure. Empire of the Sun is all about a young boy who is obsessed with airplanes and flight. And then there's E.T., a movie where characters literally read the book Peter Pan aloud, and then in the climax, the heroes of the film are able to fly via, like in Peter Pan, their belief in something otherworldly. And notably, it is only the children who can fly, not the adults. Whether or not these were inspired by Spielberg and E.T., there were several more 80s fantasy films involving children flying, such as The Neverending Story and the animated film The Snowman. How the modern obsession with superhero movies is tied to a cultural infantilization, a refusal to let go of childish things. But beyond that, it's a result of the natural desire to escape and transcend regular life. Like, The Matrix is not about wanting to be a child again, it's about wanting to break free from the box society puts you in as an adult. Which finally brings us back to Hook, which marked the culmination and conclusion of Spielberg's flight obsession. So earlier in the 80s, Spielberg had come close to making a Peter Pan adaptation, and now in 1991, he finally made it, but not a traditional one. He made a legacy sequel about Peter Pan growing up, becoming an adult, and forgetting how to fly. This is a movie that reconciled the freedom of childhood with the responsibility of adulthood. And in the end, the adult Peter Pan finds a balance. He can still fly as an adult with adult responsibilities. He's no longer a child, but it's his love for his children that allows him to fly. And this, to bring it full circle, is basically what Superman is. He's an evolution of the Peter Pan idea. Also an ageless hero from a distant land who can fly, but instead of a child, he's an adult with shredded abs. He was originally created for children, but in this story, the one who can fly is a fatherly figure. There's the freedom of flight combined with the responsibility of being an adult. Which finally brings us all the way back to that Superman shot. We have become kind of desensitized to human flight in movies, since it's now just such a part of action scenes in blockbusters. But this shot is not that, and that's one of the things that I like about it. This isn't in the middle of battle. Superman is not flying at someone to punch them. He's enjoying himself, experiencing the freedom and joy of flight. Why does he do that barrel roll that seems to make some people so mad? Because it's fun. It's about the vibes. In this episode, we have discussed so many different approaches to filming flight. But for me, the ones that stand out the most are the ones that really capture that feeling of escape and freedom. As much as the rest of Hook kind of drives me nuts, that scene where he flies does it better than maybe any movie before or since. It's this feeling that humanity has been chasing for thousands of years, and cinema became the best medium to capture it. Like, if you sit close enough to a big enough screen, it kind of feels like a flight simulator. It's like you're really living out that dream of defying gravity.